You're listening to Let's Talk Pricing, your connection to the voices, stories, and strategies shaping the pricing world. Each episode, we go beyond theory into the practical, timely conversations that help you lead with confidence and drive results. Let's start the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. I'm Kevin Mitchell from Professional Pricing Society, and today I'm really excited to talk with our special guest, Mr. Josh Bardell. Josh is going to be talking with us today about from winning the deal to winning the customer, AI, decision intelligence, and the future of pricing. And I'm really excited about our conversation today because Josh has decades of experience around our space. He has led pricing teams. He has implemented systems in a lot of different industries. Off the top of my head, airlines, retail, manufacturing, distribution, probably a few others. He's an expert in this space. And as I tell everyone, I need to learn more about AI and the intersection with pricing. So very happy for today's Let's Talk Pricing podcast. And I get the opportunity to welcome Mr. Josh Bardell. Josh, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. As always, I love the PPS organization and all that you bring for the pricing practitioners out in the world. So I'm really excited to be here. I can't believe we're already coming up on March at the beginning of next week. So time is flying by.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to believe that 2026, we're basically 1/6 over the year as we're recording this. And springtime will fly by, and so will the summer. So yes, we are very well into this year. And obviously we as pricing professionals, we as business people have a lot to do and a lot to cover and a lot of things to work on, but it is no longer the beginning of the year. You're 100% right. It's practically 2027 already in some way.
That's right.
So, Josh, I have a handful of questions for you here. And first of all, for a complete introduction here, I know that your company has gone through a merger, and of course, we in pricing would think of you as working for pros, but now, of course, due to the merger there, you are officially the principal of global industries at Conga. So congratulations on the move. Congratulations to you and your team with everything there. And I have a handful of questions for you. So really, I'm just looking forward to learning a lot more about pricing and really learning a lot about what's going on with the business world and the new tools that we have today. So again, thank you so much.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a great conversation today.
All right. Thank you, Josh. So I know that a lot of us as business people, we as pricing professionals, we as revenue managers, we in sales, we in related fields can be very competitive, and we can be very focused on winning the deal, winning the customer, and basically seeing that as the endpoint and the final thing that we are concerned with. So since a lot of companies optimize around winning the deal, can you tell us a little bit about some potential limitations of that mindset there?
Yeah, it's fascinating because, I recently just got off a call with one of our prospects who's looking to join our organization as a partnership. And they kept actually talking about, well, we need to be better at winning the deal and winning the deal. And so we took a break and stepped back. And really what I tried to articulate to them is as pricers in a business, we might be very focused on just maximizing revenue, maximizing margin. Sales is out there just saying, I got to do what I need to do to win that deal. And it's always kind of this tug of war that's happening. But what I try to articulate is we need to reframe that. Winning the deal is really not the goal. It's just a gateway to join two companies together to do business. And when organizations or sellers fixate on this idea of, oh, I just need to get the signature, I want to win that deal so I can move on, what naturally occurs, and we can see this over and over in the data analytics we pull and that we work with our customers on, is they over discount, they underprice the value which their organization brings. And when I define value, maybe it's their customer service or free shipping or overnight delivery. All of the SKUs and product offering or the knowledge they have that drives value in price. Or they accept terrible commercial terms, which as pricers, we traditionally never think about, but it's really important on how commercial terms should be impacting the price you're charging for a product. And so when you bring all these together, the results become extremely predictable. Revenue leakage, right? Unprofitable bundles, unmanaged commitments, weak revenue posturing when they try to renegotiate or resell. And then they question, why are we lagging in the marketplace, or why is our competition just eating us alive? And it's because they're focused on winning the deals versus bringing lifetime value to their customers. And so that's really kind of where I try to help educate people on, is how price, packaging, terms, CPQs, contracts, billing, usage, renewals, and all of a sudden pricing teams have to think about all of these aspects when not only setting price, but helping to have conversations with their sales organizations who are pressuring them, right? And then it's not, did we win the deal? Did we win a customer we can grow profitably year over year over year? And that's the mind shift that we're starting to see in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And thank you for your comments there. And I know that I've talked to a lot of PPS member companies, and they've done analysis on total cost to serve particular customers or particular markets. And often they have that eyebrow raising moment when they figure out the deal that they really were excited about ends up being not in the company's best interest in either the short term, medium term, or long term. So it's always good for us to remember that there is a great way to do business going forward. As you mentioned, we have to take into account the customer lifetime value. We have to take into account our costs, our competition, and all of these other elements that make what we do so much fun. So thank you for your answer with that. And Josh, since we talked about customer lifetime value, tell us a little bit about what that actually can mean in practice for pricing teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because recently I sent out the poll with a couple of my colleagues to pricers out in the marketplace, and we started seeing the surveys come back. And right now, on the first 50 surveys, we just grabbed those 50 surveys and kind of pulled them together and asked. One of the questions was around lifetime value. Are you focused as that on a pricer? And the answer we got back was 75% of the respondents said either they didn't even understand what lifetime value was, or they don't have time to focus on it. And so when you think about that, really, what does CLV mean as a pricer, as pricing professionals out there in the marketplace? And we're starting to create a frame up. As I like to think about, it's really designing value journeys, right? Not just a one-time price list. We've all lived it, right? And as you said, Kevin, I've priced in manufacturing and distribution and airlines and retail. When I was in manufacturing and distribution, I would produce price list after price list and throw them out there. And that isn't effective anymore, because that is a one-time snapshot, and so many cost variables or customer variables or competition are changing that by the time you get that list updated out in the marketplace, it's now already obsolete, and you're probably having margin leakage. But more importantly, you're creating a friction between your selling team or the e-commerce channel and their end buyers. And when that friction happens, they don't want to do business with you anymore, or they're going to demand more discounts or more favorable terms. So really kind of starting with the right pricing without sacrificing the margin. You've probably heard me say this countless times, but I think it's going to be one of those that goes kind of timeless. And I did not coin this phrase, but it's the right price for the right customer at the right time, because those three variables are changing effectively every minute. So when you can create that tailored price at that most granular customer SKU and now channel level, because we're starting to see the break in parity between direct, indirect, and say e-commerce channels, right? And when you can discount you put guardrails around those discountings and those long-term commitments, now you're not locked in as a pricing team to hope that the costs or other variables aren't going to change over time. You can help to really assess what is the product mix that they're buying and the cost to serve. So when I kind of think about this in real world practical, so our listeners, right, as we think about this, probably will relate to this. I'm working right now with a customer who does 1-year contract discounts off of a list price based on a committed volume. So the customer says, I'm going to buy 10,000 units of this and 5,000 units of that. And then the account never goes back to actually assess monthly or quarterly if the customer is actually buying that quantity. And so what happens is they've negotiated this amazing price that is not helping them, because at the end of the year, there's two things that'll happen. Either they're buying the quantity, which is great, but more unlikely because they're just using that as a negotiation tactic. So at the end, you've either had a lot of margin leakage and you're going to have to shock price that customer who's going to create that friction, right? Or you're going to let them renegotiate to that same level and just erode more margin over time. So really kind of as we think about, having to infuse and start bringing in tools like intelligence in your CLM process, right? To look at your terms of what people are committing to what they're actually spending to kind of protect that future value, right? Creating more bundles or usage tiers that the more they buy, then the more they save, as opposed to just negotiating it up front and watching that immediate margin erosion. So there's a lot to go into that. But in short, I'd say kind of aligning on price, terms, and usage at each period and start to change how pricers can negotiate out the deals that their sellers are giving, which is you have to earn this discount and we'll reward you for buying more depth and more breadth, because now it's helping not only your P&L, but it's kind of like that. I like to say chasing the airline in the hotel status is. If you're a road warrior, if you're traveling, you crave that next tier. You create that little carrot that's out there. So how can we as pricers start constructing pricing structures for sellers to be able to go put that out in the marketplace?
Yeah, definitely. And I think all of these moving targets, again, are one of the things that make for the great challenges and the opportunities that we in our part of the business world have to face. And these are just some of the things that, again, make our jobs interesting. Of course, being at the center, we have to have connections to all the other groups when we talk about this as well. And of course, when we talk about discounts, we have to remember that each and every discount that we offer anyone has to drive some favorable behavior that hopefully should be good for both parties, but definitely has to drive our goals as well. I personally am not a big fan of legacy discounts and rewarding people for doing what they've been doing for a very, very long time. Hopefully there can be some positive momentum there where we drive desired results and some improvements with our big discounts with our big customers as well. And with all that, we of course have to take into account the total cost to serve and all these things and make sure that these are all still good deals. So a lot to consider there. So thank you very much, Josh.
Isn't it amazing how complex, if we go back, Kevin, when we were pricers, right? I go back to the 90s on it. And pricing was so simplistic. We just thought in this one little lane. And just as everything you said, now all of the plates and that pricers have to balance and the departments that they have to interact with. It is mind-blowing to me how fast the pricing function has become forefront and the spotlight in every organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to all of that, a lot of the tools that we have now, a lot of the connectivity that we have, the instant access to information, most of it we hope pretty good and pretty accurate. Of course, these all come into play and make these processes iterate a lot more quickly and also give that extra dimension of probably less time to act and react and to adjust as well. So interesting times, definitely. And Josh, for me, one of the things that is one of the great perks of my job is there are a lot of areas in the business world that I have so much to learn. And you being an expert around AI and neural networks, in addition to the experience that you've had across a lot of industries, I know that you have a lot to teach us in those areas and a lot more. So I do know that AI can certainly advance pricing and that neural networks are a significant part of that. But tell me a little bit, as someone who is not up to speed on this as I should be, what has changed compared to what we would have considered to be pricing optimization from the 90s and 2000s when we were really ingrained in this and thought that we were leading edge at the time. So what has changed since then around neural networks, around AI pricing, and some of the related things out there right now?
Yeah, Kevin, it's amazing how fast the science has been changing. About 10 years ago, I was a customer of the software company that I selected. I went through the whole RFP process. And when I think back then, there's really kind of four major iterations of science over time. There's the Cartesian Excel accesses, Excel and Access slamming together. That is our Cartesian. Then there is the business aware decision tree, so branches, right? And then they went to dynamic attribute segmentation, where it's kind of tries to anchor the product and the customer, and then what attributes are relevant. But you still have to create these micro clusters. And that's the problem with all of those other forms of science that are out there is you're looking at a micro segmentation, meaning that I might have a million transactions, but for this customer and this SKU, if I look at the micro cluster they're in, it could be looking at 0.05% of my data. And it's ignoring the other 99% of the data to try to drive what will you pay, Kevin, for this particular pen? And I always love pen analogies. And so when I kind of think about those, all those earlier models used basic rules, if-thens or regressions. They were very brittle, right? They could break easily. There was a lot of data sparsity with them. And so really, when I like to think about neural networks, and I am far from being a scientist, Dr. Michael Wu and some of our incredible PhD scientists can go into incredible conversations about what it really does. I know enough just to be dangerous, but I like to think of it brings three main advantages. And it'll all boil up to kind of a theme that I like to think. Nonlinear pattern, right? It looks at cross effects of region, segment, product mix, and all these other variables without having to hard code them, hand code them, or kind of lock your profile in, because we know customers and your products are always changing, their demands are changing. So why would you force them to live in this little box? The other is continuous learning. Every single quote, every contract, every invoice is now an input variable, and the model's doing millions of calculations every night in real time, assessing what changed, what behaviors are happening. And instead of just using the historical to just create a deviation or an average off of it, it's actually predicting where that trend is going to be tomorrow. So you can be much smarter about pricing tomorrow than just using whatever was some, we'll call it a regression off of the past. The other was really kind of around contextual recommendations. Instead of kind of the static good, better, best, right? Now I want to look at what is the overall value of this bundle. And so I have one of our very large Fortune companies says, well, I'm selling this SKU, but this SKU is part of always 100 SKUs. I want to look at the relationship to these. What is this one SKU relative to the total portfolio? I can't do that kind of analysis myself, but neural networks actually does that. It looks at what we call that product centricity. It looks at the whole deal and all of the terms and value associated with it to say, what is the price for each one of these? Where do you need to give a little, and where can you harvest that margin? So the payoff really is you get much more precise pricing by unconstraining. And that's the theme. When you can consume 100% of your data to look at a price, that is so much more powerful, right? And I always like to say, if I took two pens and I had a $300 pen and a 50-cent pen, they're both black pens here, right? If I look at all of the other sciences in the world, you have two major issues. If I don't have enough transaction history at that lowest level, that for you buying a black pen, it has to go up a product level hierarchy. And instead of looking at this one Bic pen versus this Mont Blanc, it's going to look at black ballpoint pens. And now you just looked at the margin rate or the revenue of a $300 pen and a 50-cent pen. That's a disaster. And that's why salespeople don't want to trust your science, because when they get down to it, right, other than your top performing SKUs, which you already know kind of where that pricing needs to be, that 80% of the tail, you don't have the precision you need to be able to give the confidence to sell or for customers to want to buy.
Yeah, that's a good example. And we know that you always have to be worried about the law of averages. Your perfect example there, I just determined that the average price for a black ballpoint pen is exactly $150, which is, of course, ludicrous because there probably might only be one pen on the planet that costs exactly that much. And obviously, we have a bimodal situation that you presented there where the vast majority are far, far less, and there would be a handful that are far, far more there. So again, we have to definitely be wary, but some of the advantages when we go from algorithmic thinking to more of these neural networks, again, it kind of increases our aptitude in a few different dimensions, as you mentioned there. So a great example. And I want to encourage everyone, do not go out and look for the average price of Josh Bardell's two black ballpoint pens right there. It will lead you into a statistical nightmare. Your stats 101 professor is going to call you up out of nowhere if you do that. And Josh, since one of the things you talked about is the dynamism of everything that's going on there, about how instead of looking back at rules, now we can use the latest tools to give us a predictive model for what's coming up next. Yeah. How does AI-driven pricing move from these static rules to what we would call a true decision aid or the true decision intelligence?
Yeah, that's really a fascinating question, Kevin, because people think that, oh, well, I have AI or I have some form of price optimization, then I have true intelligence out of the gate. And that's really not true. There's obviously different levels of maturity in pricing maturity, and there's different levels of maturity in AI. We're seeing that in forms of agents as well, which I'm sure we'll chat a little bit about as we carry on today. But decision intelligence, to me, happens when AI is embedded in the sell side of the workflow. And I kind of want to expand on that. So many pricers today are living in an SAP world, for example, right? And they have to have dashboards over in this system, in these BI reports, and their pricing systems are over here, which is a combination of macros and Excel or Access databases. And they're doing these calculations, even if they have some type of regression analysis because they got scientists on their team. They're still then having to take that and upload it into a price condition table. And you're automatically stale that moment. That is a static, slow process. And so when we kind of think about the journey, again, this is kind of expanding, which is a newer area for pricing teams to really start to get their kind of hands into and have influence in. We all know that CPQ, right? More and more businesses are applying CPQ solutions, configure, price, quote, so their sellers can sell fast and seamlessly navigate from an opportunity to a closed won deal, right? Complex configurations inside their Salesforce or whatever their instance is, right? But they're living off of these static tables that they're calling that get updated weekly or aren't at that customer SKU granular level because price condition tables can't handle that. So when you can bring in real-time price envelopes, showing that envelope of, that expert target and floor price, where each and every item should be sold at, how the whole bundle optimization comes together. When you can look at those elasticity curves and win rates so the sellers can look and know with confidence where they should be pricing at. That to me is one of the core aspects. Then we start thinking about, well, let's step back and look at the whole CLM process, because a lot of us are familiar with the CPQ and the P, the pricing in that. But what about the CLM? When we think about kind of where does decision intelligence happen there, it's I need to put safeguards in the whole life cycle of my customer, that process, right? So what types of rebating and how is that impacting? So many times that's separate from the actual price setting, or term for convenience fees, or contract durations. And now I'm locking in a price or locking in a discount. That's preventing me from being able to look at the total profitability. Again, as you'd mentioned earlier, the cost to serve. What is the true cost to serve at every customer and every SKU? So when you can start to bring in intelligence on that whole contract lifecycle management process, now we're starting to bring the CPQ, the CLM, and also during the billing time. It is amazing to me how much leakage occurs on the backside of the billing. And so it's interesting that when I think about AI pricing, my pricing needs to account for all of those. Because if we can't shore up, say, a billing problem or leakage on rebating on the CLM process, I need to account for that as a pricer in my price decisions. But if I can wrap AI around that entire thing as a bubble, then it's looking in watching my back and taking care of me as a pricing leader and alerting me when all of these things are going. So instead of being kind of this, if X then Y system that's out there, all these bespoke, right? I want it to leverage the agents to streamline all these process flows and take actions for me and alert me when something's wrong on top tier customers, or when we might have a contract breach, or more importantly, if we have an MFC, most favored contract, or a MAP pricing. That is becoming more and more important as as we get complex pricings. We can't afford to break those because there's fines or the risk of not even being able to sell that product anymore. So it's starting to put its tentacles everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely right. And Josh, as you mentioned, I do have some questions about agents. We are a little bit due for a break right now. So everyone, please stay with us and come back to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. We're talking with Josh Bardell about from winning the deal to winning the customer, AI, decision intelligence, and the future of pricing. So please stay with us. The Let's Talk Pricing podcast will be right back.
This episode of Let's Talk Pricing is brought to you by the Professional Pricing Society. For over 40 years, PPS has been the home for pricing professionals looking to sharpen their skills, stay ahead of market shifts, and connect with peers who truly understand the discipline. From live and on-demand education to conferences, research, and career resources, PPS supports you at every stage of your pricing journey. Learn more and join the global pricing community at pricingsociety.com. And now, back to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. Kevin Mitchell here with Josh Bardell, and we're talking about a lot of very interesting things. But Josh, I do have questions about AI agents, and we started to touch on this a little bit before the break, but you've mentioned how we can use AI and use agents for real-time offers. So tell us a little bit about what that really looks like in a business-to-business context, or what that would look like for our members.
Yeah, agents, it feels like agents right now are all the buzz and all the rage and all the scary aspect that are happening out there, right? It's because you can have what types of agents, right? Are we talking about reactive agents or model-based agents and goal-based agents and utility-based agents? I could go on and on and on. There is just I can't even say how many types of agents that are out there. So when I want to kind of start the conversation off here on agents, I want to kind of think about agents as it relates to pricing. There's different types of tasks we have, right? That we want. And the future really is now. We know all the big, powerful pricing platforms that are out there are investing in deploying agents to help pricers be more efficient, to ease their risk of errors. And so when I think about everything that's already live today that people can use, pricers can leverage agents today to streamline their day-to-day tasks, right? To focus on, say, more strategic and pricing initiatives, because agents are monitoring actively in the background for any kind of anomaly or other types of alerting systems. Or maybe instead of being just a reactive agent, they're proactively going out and making price recommendations or price changes on your behalf. So therefore, if they see market trends occurring in a particular region, or you have cost changes coming in from a particular vendor, or maybe a tariff got dumped down, wouldn't it be fantastic if your agent can automatically take care of those recommendations for you and pitch it, so you're not spending another 3 days updating spreadsheets to try to load into that price condition table we talked about before the break, right? Or perhaps being able to tell an agent to go ahead and build a new pricing strategy. I want to have this type of go-to-market strategy. These are my parameters. Go construct the entire go-to-market platform and get it launched by this date. And the agent will do all of that work. When we kind of think about setting discounts, setting guardrails, likelihood to win versus margin floors, agents are now really starting to almost kind of create rationale with their reps and interact in a way that you would as if you kind of having a kind of think of it as like a seller today is like having their own little personal pricing analyst and a contracts counsel and legal person and a renewal manager in the room as they're going through their day-to-day. And pricers can still really leverage the power of being strategic and offensive in the marketplace when they know that they're pulling agents in to manage that day-to-day, so they don't have reps coming to them every day asking for this, questioning that. Let it all start to interact together. But I think we're in our infancy, right? Still, even though there's task agents of automation out there, decision support, automated workflows, conversational agents that are happening. We think there's so much done, but we've just scratched the surface. And I think for pricers in particular, it's really going to magnify the role for people who learn to integrate agents in their day-to-day and become more powerful pricers to execute go-to-market strategies, win business, and drive margin.
Certainly, and would definitely agree and encourage everyone to make sure that we have full use of all the tools that are that are out there for our usage in order to elevate our strategic levels of thought and to get out of the weeds, so to speak, and hopefully to get a lot more efficiency, effectiveness, and enjoyment from our duties as well as we kind of get up towards higher levels of thought. They're using the tools for what they should be used for. So understood that. And Josh, one of the interesting things that you said right there is you still feel that these tools are kind of still in their infancy. And I know that our counterparts on the other side of the business equation, be they buyers, purchasing, supply chain, they are also out there thinking about how they want information now, how they want a dynamic experience, how they want tailored information just for them. So how do we as pricing professionals need to evolve in order to meet the needs from folks on the other side of the desk or the email or the phone as well?
Yeah, it is incredible when I kind of think about what pricers have to evolve to. Buyers today are becoming younger and younger, right? And when we think about how they want to conduct business, they want seamless, they want touchless, they want to be able to do it on their phone or their tablet or their laptop while they're out at a cafe, right? Grabbing the latest, cappuccino drink. And so dynamic expectations are now requiring, kind of this dynamic commercial design. And if we go back even just a few years ago, and we said it earlier, that the demand on pricers is really half or a fraction of what it is today. But now we've got constantly changing cost, SKU proliferation. I know a particular account that I'm working with, they add over 50,000 SKUs a month to their product assortment. And that's 50,000 more SKUs at multiple channels and customer tiering that the pricers have to manage. Tariffs. Like, I know we're all so tired of hearing tariffs. And just when we thought, right, they were coming to some form of stability, then everything gets turned on its head this week. And now all of a sudden tariffs are all over the place and no one knows what's happening again. So we know pricers are ramping up to get ready for lots of tariff calculations. All this stuff is added pressure. And at the same time, because buyers now want this digital, personalized, dynamic experience, that's putting more pressures on sales, finance, inventory teams, and everybody are start demanding more from pricers to be able to deliver that personalized price, that personalized experience. And so I would say the entire customer lifecycle is through that whole journey, the beginning of that partnership as you're courting that customer, and all the way through contract renewals again and again and again. It's putting more pressure on the pricing teams. So when we kind of think about, packages and tiering that reflect, that particular buyer, the industry, the adoptions, transparent rationale around value articulation and ROI, it's a lot. And they have to do that with speed and accuracy. And so as I kind of think about using AI, right? Again, we touched on this, and I know it's kind of this reoccurring theme, but pricers can't manage all this manually anymore. And it's interesting is we think about one of those polls that I had mentioned, the average pricing team right now is like 5 to 9 people. Well, how are they going to manage that kind of complexity and dynamic nature of their end customers without bringing in AI guided workflows, right? Enforceable terms so they don't have to go back and continue to renegotiate price. And when they can start to do that, then I think the experience feels more tailored for their end customer, and the business can stay disciplined so they don't have that margin leakage. That to me is where pricing teams are having to evolve to at a rapid rate if they want to stay relevant in the marketplace today. And that's
Definitely.
the if.
And you're 100% right there. And of course, when we iterate it and go kind of line by line on what pricing teams have to do, we really do an incredible amount of things for our organizations. And of course, I know you with your history, me with my history. We at PPS are always trying to advocate for pricers who might be undertrained, undercompensated, might not have the latest tools. So we encourage everyone to make sure that you can take advantage of everything that is out there, certainly. And Josh, one of the things that you mentioned in addition to all of that is that some companies are also changing their business models. We know a lot of people going towards a subscription-based model. A lot of people are taking rebates into account now and so many other things there. So how do we do this efficiently and effectively as well? How do companies treat either these new models or these new ways of doing business as lifetime value levers?
Yeah, I want to jump into that one, but you said something that kind of piqued my interest. And it was kind of about the value, like when we were pricing and we started. And I remember when I got my first job in the 90s as a pricer, and I will share what I was earning then. It was in today's dollars, $60,000 a year to lead it was about $1.5 billion of revenue at the time. I recently had a couple of accounts say, "Hey, we're looking for a new pricing leader," and these are right around $3 billion companies. And I said, "Well, I'm happy to help you. I know some great prices that are in the marketplace looking for new roles. What's your compensation structure looking like?" And Kevin, if I can share this with you on this podcast, the actual role as a senior director of pricing, they said, "We'll pay up to $300,000 OTE for a pricing leader." And if you think just that type of jump from $60,000, $66,000 in today's dollars from when I started to now we're seeing comp packages of $300,000, $400,000, right, for pricing leaders, it showcases the importance that organizations are investing in the right people, paying the right price because of the value that we as pricers bring to the organization. And so rebates kind of dovetails, and that's where I'm going to go into this a little bit, is we used to just set a price, but now we have to think about rebates and subscriptions, as you mentioned. How are companies treating them if we go back to the lifetime value of a customer versus just, say, a short-term incentive? Again, the whole theme here, winning the deal, which was our opening up conversation. Are we just using that as a discount tactic? And we can't anymore. And so that's another avenue that we've now tapped into, a whole nother area that pricers have to think about, right? Rebates and subscriptions are really kind of economics at scale. So I like to say rebates, right? When we can tie the accruals, right? And this is where we get into debits and credits and accruals and all this thing to the behaviors that grow profitable share and mix multi-year over and over. So their customers are not just on a volume basis, but thinking about the total, again, that depth and breadth. If you offer 1 million SKUs, let's just boil this down simply. Are they buying 1 or 2 categories from you, or are they buying 40 categories from you? And when we think about rebates, your rebate programs need to be structured to drive the depth and the breadth, not just total volume, because they could cherry pick you on 1, 2, or 5 key SKUs, drive significant volume in that, and then they're buying everything else everywhere else. And you don't want that. You have to have that balanced portfolio. And subscriptions are a fascinating one. I have never seen a more visceral reaction when we say subscriptions, right? How many subscriptions do you have at home right now? I try to keep track of them. I've lost track. I actually just found I got an alert that was in my junk email that I've been getting every month for the last 5 years on a subscription to an identity theft type thing that I realized that I started at a 99 cents, and now I was paying $22 for this subscription every single month. I have forgot I even had it. Subscriptions are, once you sign up, it's so easy to forget about them, right? But so in that sense, we hate them. And I see so many people go, I got subscriptions for everything in the world. On the flip side, they create stickiness. And when done right, they create an incredible customer experience and drive significant profits. So design tiers that encourage expansion of the products you offer or the services you offer. And being able to do that without surprise bills like I just saw I had, right? And use floor commitments to protect the margins as you scale these subscriptions. What you do is you create a stickiness with your customers that's so strong that now you realize you have, again, going all the way back to the beginning, that predictable revenue, that predictable margin that our organizations want and our organizations need. So we're shifting the mindset of rebates and subscriptions from deal sweeteners to kind of life cycle governors that nudge customers deeper and deeper into the adoption of healthy business economics. So now it's like our pricers also have to have an economic degree. So let's add that one to the mix. So we should speak in store, Kevin.
Yeah. And it's interesting how some of these tools have gone from being the side dish to the main entree, depending on your organization as well. So again, another set of interesting challenges, again, that is going to make sure that we have interesting days at work and great tasks at hand. And Josh, I know that when I talk with some PPS members, some of us are already bought into a lot of the latest tools that you're talking about here, about how we can use AI, about what agents can do. But there are quite a lot of us who are, let's say, interested, intrigued, and perhaps want to take a look at things, but might be a little bit cautious right now. So where would you say is a good starting point for individuals, for organizations, and for teams to get started here?
Yeah, this one really is, to me, one of the most important topics out in the marketplace right now, Kevin. There are pricing leaders that know they need to invest in technology. But one, you have to build this ROI business case, and then you're signing up for that business case. And I have heard it time and time again. I was told it myself. if this project fails, I'm going to be the person that's going to fire you. Right. So people are putting their careers on the line. And when we really think about turning on a pricing, say, solution of some kind or some form of technology, we all know as pricers, if that doesn't work, you can't sell anything. And therefore, you have zero revenue, and you can wipe off an entire month's or quarter's P&L with a couple of bad days trying to get something up and live. And so I always say, look, it's easy. You might want to rip off the Band-Aid and get everybody just thrown in, but that's not the most efficient or best practice out there. Start where the proof is fastest to build that adoption and credibility, but the risk is absolutely controlled. And I'll go into a couple examples on that. Almost everybody that's on this podcast or organization, right, has some form of a CRM or CPQ. So infusing, say, AI pricing into that CRM, but you turn on the negotiated envelope for one or two product lines only. Maybe your tail product lines, those ancillary ones that aren't important, or a particular customer group, or maybe just one sales RVP region and one subset of customers or products. When we see that they start with, say, the long tail SKUs, those low risk SKUs, one, they can show that those are ones that usually have the most uplift potential. So we're leaving money on the table because pricers don't even price that end of the SKU. In fact, I've got an account that has 3.8 million SKUs. They, on average, only price 800,000 a quarter. So what about all the other ones? They're like, oh, we try to update those once a year, right? So that's a fantastic area where you have no risk to low risk to start putting in AI pricing there. And then expand it, right? When you kind of you can expand that science, then look at the next tiering of customer, the next product group, and start to slowly chunk away in 3, 4, or even 10 phases. And by the time you get to your highest value customers, your highest value product, right? Now everybody's already bought in and excited because people are making more money. Commission checks for the sales teams are higher. Finance teams happier because they're seeing the bottom line move and the needle move with no elasticity. Then you can start to expand it. Well, that's at a SKU level. Let's look at the entire deal optimization. Because again, when you start thinking about the power of like neural networks, you can optimize at the SKUs, you can optimize at the deal, you can have multiple science models going to collaborate with each other. And this doesn't not only drive more profitable business, but it's an increased customer experience. Because there are certain customers that might have more elasticity to particular SKUs, or more where the whole deal has to be optimized. Because say you're looking at building a whole new building and you're putting a roof structure on, right? There's a lot of membranes and layers and flashings and all the hardware that goes into it. They're looking at what's this total project going to cost me? Is this a $4 million project or a $4.5 million project? So now you can start to look at bringing different types of science together for your go-to-market strategy. But all the nails, we're going to price those at the individual SKU. And each step will deliver kind of this measurable lift, increased win rates, and increased margin improvement. And at the right price, right time, the right customer in real-time pricing, now you've shortened the sales cycle. And that transforms the buying experience for the end customer. They're getting everything delivered right there. And we know that businesses are significantly more likely to convert when they can deliver that pricing in real time in a seamless end-to-end process from quoting to document signature out in the field or on a phone call in a matter of minutes. Not, let me go back to my sales manager, RVP, and try to get some overrides. I'll get back to you on Friday. That just doesn't work in today's market.
Definitely not. And that's quite a good parallel with how a lot of us as pricing professionals would handle any other new project. And that might be to get some wins where you can, to get in the door, so to speak, and then to theoretically or realistically say, what if we multiplied those gains across our entire portfolio? So kind of a similar path there. So that's an interesting way of thinking about it. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. We're due for another break, but we will be right back with Josh Bardell. Thank you.
This episode of Let's Talk Pricing is brought to you by the Professional Pricing Society. For over 40 years, PPS has been the home for pricing professionals looking to sharpen their skills, stay ahead of market shifts, and connect with peers who truly understand the discipline. From live and on-demand education to conferences, research, and career resources, PPS supports you at every stage of your pricing journey. Learn more and join the global pricing community at pricingsociety.com. And now, back to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. Today, we are having a wonderful discussion with Mr. Josh Bardell. We're talking about AI, we're talking about agents, we're talking about decision intelligence, and we're talking about some futuristic things as well. And since we are talking about futuristic things, Josh, given your history in pricing and in some related fields as well, if you looked ahead a few years, medium term and long term, what's going to define a good pricing team?
Oh, wow. Kevin, that is something I could probably spend the next hour on if we had that kind of time. We'll have to do like pricing teams over the next 5 years, 2.0 conversation, because it really is a nonlinear line, right? It is an exponential line of what a high performing pricing team will be evolving to over the next 5 years. And I, like you, have the pleasure of talking to so many fantastic pricing leaders and where they are taking not only their businesses, but themselves and investing in themselves in that. But when we kind of really think about pricing, again, it's no longer just a cost plus list discount type of mindset anymore. It's really about what I'm going to call revenue data fluency, right? We have to look at, again, and we've talked so much over the last hour about this, right? About the entire quote, the entire contract usage. We have to look at the total financial cost to serve and value that you're providing your customers. So having that type of financial acumen, looking more at it from like a not only just a P&L perspective, but also just a value of your product offering and services that your company brings. The next is around AI. AI obviously is here. It's here to stay in some form in our space. It's going to continue penetrating deeper and deeper into pricing organizations. So think about kind of AI not as just a tool out there, but kind of almost AI co-ownership across really advanced pricing leaders inside your organization. The models are becoming more like products, right? You can have multiple, we said it before the break, multiple models where you need to. Where before it was, right, price optimization solutions did the model run for you and you just got an output. But now you have full control of these models. You can govern the inputs or monitor the drift. You can tune these various recommendations for your go-to-market strategy. And it's interesting, I'm going to pause on that one for a second. It's because I want to make sure everybody who's listening in, AI pricing tools are not a go-to-market strategy, right? AI pricing tools are technology stack to help you execute that go-to-market strategy. And we have to remember when we think about where we're evolving to is you have to evolve of where do you want your go-to-market strategy to be for your organization to achieve the sales goals, the profit goals, the selling team goals, right? Your suppliers and vendors and your customers. You have to still be able to use these models to develop the right pricing to execute that. Then it's really around when we think about moving away from the spreadsheets, but the overall whole process of the sales journey for the end customer and starting to really focus in on not just the black and white numbers on a spreadsheet, but what are my end customers looking for? What is the experience they're demanding? Where will they pay for that incremental value and being able to think about that aspect? So we become kind of change stewards across our entire organization from marketing and inventory and sales, right? And pulling all that together. So I would say winning teams are not going to just set the price. they're really going to take control of the entire total revenue system. And they're going to run it with AI, right? And Kevin, you've seen me present many times over the last 13 years. And my favorite quote that I still come back to over and over again, how I conclude almost every one of my presentations is AI will not replace you, but a person using AI will. So as pricers, we have to think about how can we grow, leverage, learn, increase our own knowledge base around AI so we can bring that into our workplace. That to me is going to separate you into that ultimate high performing pricing team and pricing leader.
Yeah, thank you very much for the insights there, Josh. Certainly appreciate that. And certainly also appreciate you giving us a lot to think about and also telling us how we can use the tools to become more strategic in our jobs. And of course, we have seen pricing evolve from clerical to analytical to managerial to hopefully being a strategic partner amongst all of the other departments that we work with. And in addition to having connections to our marketplace, our customer base, our competition, our costs, and kind of all of the above. So may you live in interesting times, but make sure to take advantage of all of the tools there as well. And very, very regrettably, we are running up against time, but I do want to thank our very special guest on today's Let's Talk Pricing podcast, Mr. Josh Bardell. And of course, you can connect with Josh. He is the principal of global industries at Conga. And also, Josh, we are very, very much looking forward to your presentation at PPS Profitable coming up in Chicago in the spring. So I look forward to seeing you there, if not before. And thanks again to our members for joining us for today's Let's Talk Pricing podcast. We have many other great things coming up, but a very special thank you to Mr. Josh Bardell for your insights today. Josh, very nicely done, and thanks so much. Gave us a lot to think about.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you so much.